Forward to it. Thank you, Chris. A domestic dispute ends with one man dead, another arrested for murder, following a shooting on the Far East Side over the weekend.
CBS 4's Jesse Wells explains what court documents claim happened in the moments leading up to the deadly violence.
According to court records, just 5 minutes before he was killed, the victim called 911 and reported he was on his way to this street to help his girlfriend in a domestic dispute involving her ex. Unfortunately, that dispute ended with violence seconds before police could arrive.
He picked up his phone, dialed 911, told them where he was going, and 5 minutes later, he was dead. Za'Sean Davis never even made it out of his car. He was 29 years old. He got a call from his girlfriend that her ex was causing problems. And like a lot of people who love somebody, he didn't think twice. He got in his car. He drove over there. He was trying to help her. 5 minutes. That's all the time there was between him making that call and taking his last breath on a quiet Indianapolis street at 4 in the morning. And the worst part? Police were already on their way. They were seconds behind him. Seconds. Let me tell you something. This story is one of those that stays with you, because Za'Sean Davis didn't do anything wrong. He just loved somebody, and that cost him everything. In every home, behind every closed door, there's a story waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where we dive deep into the hidden truths of domestic crime and the relationships that turn deadly. If you're drawn to real stories, powerful insights, and the shadows most people avoid, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and step into the whispers they never wanted you to hear. Now, to understand how we got here, you have to understand the situation that was already in motion before Za'Sean ever left his house that night. His girlfriend. She had a past with another man. His name was Quentin Sanders, and by the time this night rolled around, that relationship was over. She had moved on. She was with Za'Sean now. But Quentin Sanders? He was not handling that well. Not at all. Girl, some people just cannot let go. And instead of walking away and giving that woman her peace, Sanders kept showing up in her space. That tension had been sitting there, waiting. So when Sanders and his ex got into an argument that night and she got out of his car, she didn't run. She didn't hide. She walked straight over to where Za'Sean was parked, sitting in his own SUV, right there outside her home on James Runway on the Far East Side of Indianapolis. She felt safer near him. And honestly, who could blame her? But what she didn't know, what neither of them could have known in that moment, was that Sanders was not done. It was just after 4 in the morning on a Sunday. The street was quiet. Za'Sean was in his car. His girlfriend had just walked over to him after stepping out of Sanders' vehicle following their argument. And Za'Sean, being the person he was, had already made that 911 call. He told the dispatcher where he was, why he was there, what was going on. He was doing everything right. He was trying to handle it the responsible way. But Sanders didn't care about any of that. According to what he later admitted to detectives, the whole argument that night came down to one thing. She had another dude. That was it. That was the reason. She had moved on and he couldn't accept it. So while his ex was standing near Za'Sean's SUV, Sanders came up from behind her. He didn't say anything. He didn't walk away. He didn't let it go. He opened fire. Make it make sense. A man called 911 to do the right thing, and he still didn't get the chance to survive the night. Za'Sean Davis was shot and killed right there in that neighborhood, in his own car, on a street he only came to because someone he cared about needed him. Police arrived seconds later. Literally seconds. But it was already over. Crime. The woman who witnessed everything. The woman who had been standing right there. She told detectives exactly what happened. She described how the argument started, how she got out of Sanders' car, how she walked over to Za'Sean, and then how Sanders came up behind her and pulled that trigger. She watched the man she called for help get shot in front of her eyes. Za'Sean Davis died on that street. He never had a chance to defend himself. He never saw it coming. He was sitting in his car, not approaching Sanders, not escalating anything, just sitting there, waiting for police, while the woman he came to protect stood nearby. And Sanders shot him anyway. Oh, so now, after all of that, after coming up behind a woman and shooting the man she was standing near, after ending a 29-year-old man's life on a quiet residential street before the sun even came up, Sanders tried to drive away. He got in his car and tried to leave the neighborhood like he could just go home and that would be that. But the police were already pulling up, and when they stopped him, he was still covered in Za'Sean Davis's blood. The murder weapon was still on him. There was nowhere to go. There was nothing to say. The evidence was sitting right there on his hands, on his clothes, in his car. Quentin Sanders was taken into custody on the spot. Now here is where this case takes a turn that you don't always see in stories like this. Because usually investigations take time. Detectives piece things together over days, sometimes weeks. They chase leads. They wait on forensics. They build a case slowly. That did not happen here. Everything they needed was right there the moment they pulled up to that street. The suspect was present. The weapon was on him. The victim's blood was on his clothes. And there was a witness who had been standing there and watched the whole thing unfold from inches away. Period. This was not a case that required a lot of detective work to crack open. The crime scene told the story before anyone even opened their mouth. But what made it even more damning was what happened when Sanders sat down with detectives. He talked. Before he asked for a lawyer, before he caught himself, Quentin Sanders admitted to detectives that the argument that night had started because his ex had another dude. Those were his words, not a misunderstanding, not a miscommunication. He was upset that she had moved on. He was upset that Za'Sean existed in her life, and he acted on that. Now, investigators also had the 911 recording, Za'Sean's own voice calling in from 5 minutes before his death, telling the dispatcher exactly where he was going and why. That call became part of the evidence. A man documenting his own last moments without ever knowing that's what he was doing. Think about that for a second. He was trying to do everything by the book. He called the police. He told them the situation. He gave them the location. He was not trying to be a hero. He was just trying to make sure his girlfriend was safe while help was on the way, and he still didn't make it. The girlfriend's account to detectives lined up with every piece of physical evidence they had. Her testimony, the blood on Sanders, the weapon, the 911 call. It all told the same story from the same direction. There were no holes. There were no contradictions. What detectives were left with was not a mystery. It was a clear, documented, witnessed killing, and a suspect who was caught before he even made it out of the neighborhood.
According to court records, just 5 minutes before he was killed, the victim called 911 and reported he was on his way to this street to help his girlfriend in a domestic dispute involving her ex. Unfortunately, that dispute ended with violence seconds before police could arrive. Just after 4 o'clock Sunday morning, police believe 29-year-old Za'Sean Davis was shot and killed trying to help his girlfriend in this neighborhood along James Run Way. The woman who witnessed the violence firsthand told detectives she got into an argument with her former boyfriend, got out of his car, and walked over to Davis, who was sitting in his own SUV, when the suspect suddenly came up behind her and opened fire. Police arrived seconds later and took the accused killer, Quentin Sanders, into custody as he tried to drive out of the neighborhood, still covered in the victim's blood and armed with the murder weapon.
Domestic violence can have an impact on everyone.
Danielle Smith with the INDI Champion says the shooting outside this home illustrates why they encourage domestic violence victims and their loved ones to call police or safety advocates and get their help de-escalating conflicts peacefully instead of confronting potentially dangerous suspects on their own.
If you are in serious danger, definitely call the police. That's the first thing you should do. Please try not to call your loved ones. Try not to call your friends. Try not to call anyone that's connected until you've called the police first, so that way we can prevent a homicide.
But you can't ever bring back that life, and that's why we want to urge and remind the community, please do not try to solve these types of conflicts on your own. Anytime a firearm could be present, and it's not worth losing your life over.
According to this affidavit, Sanders admitted he had been arguing with his ex and told detectives, "I'm not a bad person, I'm not no monster or anything," before he asked for an attorney. Finally, Sanders is due in court for his initial hearing later this week. In the meantime, he's being held without bond pending the filing of formal charges by the prosecutor's office.
Quinton Sanders was taken into custody that same morning, right there on James Runway, as he tried to drive away from what he had just done. He was held without bond, and when he sat across from detectives, he had things to say. He told them he had been arguing with his ex. He acknowledged the confrontation, and then he said something that a lot of people who heard this case could not shake. "I am not a bad person. I'm not no monster or anything." And then he asked for an attorney. Like, okay. So we are going to say that and then stop talking. Understood. But here is the thing about those words. Nobody called him a monster in that interrogation room. Nobody had to. The evidence spoke for itself. A 29-year-old man was dead. His girlfriend had watched it happen. And Sanders had been caught with the blood and the weapon still on him. Whether he believed those words about himself or not, Za'Sean Davis was not alive to offer his side of things. And that matters. Sanders appeared in court for his initial hearing later that week. The case moved forward with formal charges from the prosecutor's office. The evidence against him was not something that could be argued away easily, not with a witness, a weapon, a confession of motive, and a victim's 911 call all pointing in the same direction. Moving on, because the courtroom is not where this story ends. The real weight of what happened on James Runway is bigger than any one hearing or any one charge. Za'Sean Davis was 29 years old. He was not the one with the problem that night. He was not the aggressor. He was not out there looking for trouble. He got a call from someone he cared about, and he showed up. That is the kind of person he was, and that is exactly what made this so devastating. Because the very thing that makes someone a good person, the instinct to protect the people you love, is the same thing that can put you in the most dangerous situations you will ever face. And that is the conversation this case forced the community to have. Daniette Smith from INDI Champions said it plainly after this shooting, that domestic violence does not only affect the two people in the relationship. It reaches out and pulls in everyone connected to them. Friends, family, new partners, people who had nothing to do with whatever happened before. Za'Sean had nothing to do with whatever happened between Sanders and his ex. He was not the reason that relationship ended. He was not the cause of that argument. He was just the man she had moved on with. And that was enough for Sanders to end his life. Girl, the idea that loving someone new, that simply existing in someone's life, can get you killed because their ex cannot accept it. That is not something we talk about enough. IMPD officer Tommy Thompson put it in a way that a lot of people in this community needed to hear. He said you cannot ever bring back that life. And that is why, when you are in danger, the first call has to be to the police, not to a loved one, not to a friend, not to anyone who is going to come running without backup, without a vest, without the tools to actually contain a situation that has already gone past the point of conversation. Because when you call the person you love, you are not protecting them. You are putting them in the same danger you are already in. Anyways, that is not said to place any blame on the woman who made that call. She was scared. She was in the middle of a situation she did not ask for. and the person she called came because he loved her. That is human. That is real. But the lesson that Za'Sean Davis's death leaves behind is one that this community cannot afford to ignore. If you are in danger, call the police first. Let the people with the training and the authority be the ones who walk into that situation. Because once a firearm enters the picture, and as Officer Thompson said, you never know when one might be present. There is no taking anything back. Za'Sean Davis made that 911 call. He did the right thing. He just did not get the chance to let it protect him, and that is the part that stays with you. A 29-year-old man, sitting in his car, waiting for help to arrive, doing everything right, and he still lost his life, not because of anything he did, but because someone else could not let go. Rest easy, Za'Sean.